What if I told you that a boy mocked for being born out of wedlock in the segregated South would one day run for the presidency of the United States? What if I told you that this same man would negotiate the release of American hostages, stand beside Martin Luther King Jr. on the day he was assassinated, and transform American politics for generations to come? And what if I told you that even in death in 2026, the same racism and political resistance he fought his entire life would resurface in debates over how the nation should honor him? Today, we're examining the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, a lifelong struggle against racism and a lasting fight for justice. Before we dive into how the racism Jesse Jackson faced as a child reappeared through his life and even after his death, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because this is the kind of historical analysis that shows patterns across generations. Before we explore Reverend Jesse Jackson's journey from the Jim Crow South to presidential campaigns and the controversies surrounding his recognition after his death, make sure you're subscribed. This is the story of persistence they need to hear. Jesse Jackson was born Jesse Louis Burns on October 8, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina, a city firmly entrenched in the racial segregation of the Jim Crow South. From the moment of his birth, Jackson's life was shaped by social barriers and prejudice. His mother, Helen Burns, was only a teenager at the time, and his biological father was a married neighbor. The circumstances of his birth made him a target of ridicule and judgment, even within his own community. Jackson later recalled that he was often mocked by other children because he was born out of wedlock, an experience that deeply affected his sense of identity and determination to succeed. Beyond personal stigma, Jackson grew up surrounded by institutionalized racism. Like many black children in the South during the 1940s and the 1950s, he attended segregated schools and lived in a society that openly enforced racial hierarchy. White schools in his community were well funded and nearby, while black children often had to travel miles to attend separate and inferior schools. Jackson remembered walking past the school for white children every day on his way to a segregated black school several miles away. These experiences were formative. Living under segregation exposed Jackson to the daily humiliation and injustice faced by Black Americans. Yet, rather than discourage him, these conditions helped shape his emerging sense of purpose. He began to understand that racial inequality was not merely an individual hardship, but a systemic problem that required organized resistance. If you're starting to see how childhood experiences under Jim Crow shaped Jesse Jackson's lifelong commitment to justice, stay with me, because what comes next shows how he transformed from a boy mocked in Greenville to a national civil rights leader. Jackson's first direct act of civil rights activism occurred when he was still a teenager. In 1960, he participated in a protest against segregated public facilities in Greenville. Along with several other young activists, he took part in a read-in at a whites-only public library. The group was arrested for disorderly conduct, making Jackson's first arrest in a long career of civil disobedience and protest. Jackson left South Carolina to attend college, where his political awareness and activism intensified. While studying at North Carolina A&T State University, a historically black college, Jackson became deeply involved in student leadership and civil rights organizing. He was influenced by the wave of activism sweeping college campuses across the South, especially after the Greensboro sit-ins sparked nationwide demonstrations against segregated lunch counters. Jackson's time in college cemented his commitment to social justice. He began to see the civil rights movement not only as a moral cause, but as a political struggle requiring strategic leadership. Jackson's national prominence grew when he joined the movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 1965, he traveled to Selma, Alabama, to participate in the historic Voting Rights March from Selma to Montgomery. The march became a defining moment in the struggle for Black voting rights and helped to lead to the passage of the Voting Rights Act later that year. Recognizing Jackson's leadership potential, Dr. King soon appointed him to work with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the SCLC. Jackson eventually directed Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, a program designed to pressure businesses to hire Black workers and invest in Black communities. These years were transformative. Jackson witnessed firsthand the power of organized protest and coalition building, but he also saw the violent backlash against the civil rights movement. Activists faced harassment, arrest, beatings, and even murder. He was present in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated.
His head, and I asked him, I said, Dr. King, do you hear me? Dr. King, do you hear me? And he didn't say anything.
The traumatic event profoundly shaped his life and legacy. For Jackson and many others, King's death symbolized both the dangers of fighting for justice and the responsibility to continue the struggle. If you're starting to understand how Jesse Jackson went from walking past white schools as a child to standing beside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the day he was assassinated, stay with me, because what comes next shows how he carried that struggle forward. After King's assassination, Jackson emerged as one of the most prominent leaders carrying forward the ideas of the civil rights movement. In 1971, he founded Operation Push, People United to Serve Humanity, an organization dedicated to economic empowerment, voter registration, and social justice initiatives. Operation Push became known for organizing boycotts against major corporations that discriminated against Black workers and consumers. Through economic pressure campaigns, Jackson successfully pushed companies such as Coca-Cola and Burger King to increase minority hiring and business opportunities. Jackson later expanded his vision with the creation of the Rainbow Coalition, a political movement that sought to unite Black Americans, labor groups, women, farmers, and other marginalized communities into a broad alliance for progressive change. The coalition emphasized that struggles for justice were interconnected across racial, economic, and social lines. His leadership transformed him into one of the most visible civil rights figures in America. In the 1980s, Jackson took his activism to the national political stage by running for the presidency of the United States. His campaigns in 1984 and 1988 were historic moments in American politics. They energized millions of voters, especially in Black communities that had long felt excluded from the political system. Jackson's 1988 campaign was especially significant. He won several state primaries and finished second in the Democratic nomination race, demonstrating the growing political influence of minority voters. Although he did not win the presidency, Jackson's campaign helped reshape American politics, Many analysts later credited his efforts with expanding the political coalition that eventually enabled the election of Barack Obama decades later. The boy who had walked past white schools in Greenville, South Carolina, had run for president of the United States. If you're connecting how Jesse Jackson's childhood under Jim Crow led to presidential campaigns that changed American politics, stay with me, because what comes next shows how he spent the rest of his life fighting for justice and how that fight continued even after his death. Throughout the remainder of his career, Jackson continued to advocate for human rights, economic justice, and international diplomacy. He negotiated the release of American hostages abroad. He supported anti-apartheid movements in South Africa. He remained active in domestic issues such as voting rights and education reform. Even as he aged and faced health challenges, Jackson remained involved in public activism. He spoke at rallies, supported emerging social justice movements, and encouraged young generations to continue the fight for equality. His message, often summarized by the phrase, "Keep hope alive," became one of the defining slogans of modern civil rights activism.
We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive.
When Jesse Jackson died in February 2026 at the age of 84, tributes poured in from across the United States and around the world. Former presidents, civil rights leaders, and thousands of supporters gathered to celebrate his life and legacy. However, debates soon emerged about how the nation should honor him. One point of controversy was the decision not to allow Jackson to lie in honor in the United States Capitol Rotunda, a ceremonial recognition that has historically been granted to a select group of national figures. Reports indicated that proposals to honor Jackson there were rejected despite support from some political leaders. The decision sparked criticism from many supporters who believed Jackson's contributions to civil rights and American democracy merited the same recognition granted to other prominent religious leaders such as Billy Graham, who had previously received the honor. Others pointed to broader debates surrounding national recognition of political figures. Comparisons were drawn with the public honors given to other controversial figures, including activist and commentator Charlie Kirk. These debates reflected ongoing divisions within American politics and society about how historical figures are remembered. For Jackson's supporters, the controversy echoed the struggles he had faced throughout his life. Recognition often came slowly and sometimes only after resistance or debate. The racism he faced as a child walking past white schools reappeared in debates over whether he deserved to be honored in the Capitol. Despite disagreements over official honors, Jackson's influence on American society remains profound. Over half a century of activism, he helped expand voting rights, increase corporate diversity, and amplify the voices of marginalized communities. Perhaps most importantly, Jackson helped redefine the possibilities of political participation for Black Americans. His presidential campaigns demonstrated that Black candidates could compete seriously for the highest office in the country, inspiring future generations of leaders. Jackson also played a key role in building multiracial coalitions around issues such as economic inequality, education access, and healthcare. His Rainbow Coalition vision emphasized unity across racial and social lines, a message that remains relevant in modern political discourse. The life of Jesse Jackson illustrates a remarkable journey through some of the most important chapters of American history, from the segregated streets of Greenville to the national stage of presidential politics. Jackson dedicated his life to challenging injustice and advocating for those whose voices were often ignored. The racism he faced as a child did not disappear as he grew older. Instead, it reappeared in new forms during the civil rights movement, in political opposition, and even in debates over how his legacy should be honored after his death. Yet, these challenges also highlight the significance of Jackson's achievements. Despite barriers and controversies, he remained steadfast in his commitment to justice and equality. His leadership helped transform the civil rights movement from a regional struggle into a national and global cause. Today, Jesse Jackson's life reminds us that progress is rarely simple or uncontested. It requires courage, persistence, and faith in the possibility of change. While official honors and political recognition may come and go, the impact of Jackson's work endures in the expanded rights, opportunities, and voices of millions of people. For those who benefited from his efforts and those who continue to fight for justice, one truth remains clear. The legacy of Jesse Jackson will not be defined by the debates surrounding his death, but by the hope and progress he helped create during his lifetime. And for that reason, his contributions will continue to be remembered, celebrated, and honored for generations to come. Keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
If this video showed you how the racism Jesse Jackson faced as a child reappeared throughout his life and even in his death, but also how his determination never wavered, I need you to do 4 things for me right now. First, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This is the kind of historical analysis that shows patterns across generations, and you need to see every video we release. Second, like this video and share it with your family, your church, and your community. People, and especially the next generation, need to understand how leaders like Jesse Jackson transformed American politics. Third, leave a comment and answer these questions so that others can learn. 1. How does understanding Jesse Jackson's journey from childhood mockery to presidential campaigns change how you see political progress? 2. What does it tell you that he was denied honor at the Capitol Rotunda while others were granted it? And 3. How do we teach the next generation to keep hope alive while acknowledging the ongoing struggle for racial equality? 4th, explore the sources and books on this topic in our complete Black History Library at the link in the description and in the pinned comments below. Jesse Jackson walked past white schools as a child, ran for president as an adult, and even in death faced the same resistance. That's not just biography. That's pattern. That's history repeating itself. Nevertheless, we will never forget the impact, positive impact, that he made that changed the course of this country. Subscribe, share, and speak the truth. I'll see you at the next video.